once human, you can create some very powerful legendary and very powerful weapons.
I'm gonna come.
To honestly make your character very powerful, I'm going to show you all the weapon tricks you need to know to build out and spec out some amazing and powerful weapons. First are the weapon tiers and mats. So the way weapon tiers work in Once Human is they go on a tier system where tier 1 is a certain power and damage, tier 2 is more powerful, tier 3, etc, etc. Now, one of the confusing things about this early on, higher tiers of weapon actually require more crafting materials. Meaning if we check here for tier 2, this requires bronze ingots and standard parts, and tier 3 requires a different set of materials. The way you differentiate these is by level. So the starter area of the Dayton wetlands over here where Deadsville is levels 0 to 10. So if you look at all of the towns here, it has a recommended level of 10, a recommended level of 2, a recommended level of 9. So any one of these areas in this entire section is going to give us the materials for tier 1 weapons. Once we go down here into the Broken Delta, where everything is levels 10 through 20, that's going to be equivalent to tier level 2. And each time you complete a monolith and move to a brand new area, it essentially goes up a tier in terms of your weapon and armor. And then again, once you come up here into the Iron River, you can see some of the stuff here is going to be levels 20 to 30, meaning we're now going to tier 3. This goes the same for Chalk Peak over here. From levels 30 to 40, you get tier 4 weapons, and then levels 40 to 50 in the Red Sands. So it's important when you move to a new area, you farm and get new weapons for that tier of area as quickly as possible. Next, I want to talk about the weapon skills and how your Memetics tree works for your weapons. So ideally, once we go into our crafting section, you can see we're going to have our regular gear workbench here. This is going to allow us to craft tier 1 and tier 2 weapons. This is something you want to invest into early, and then the same goes for your intermediate gear workbench. This allows you to craft tier 3 and tier 4 weapons. So out of all the points you can put in your Memetics, you want to make sure you have this stuff down pat once you unlock that tier's worth of area. Otherwise, you're going to be drastically behind. So as long as you get to intermediate gear workbench and can craft up to tier 3 and tier 4 weapons, you should be good. But then tier 5 eventually, once it unlocks, because it is time gated until a certain point in the season, will allow us to craft this advanced gear workbench, which lets us craft tier 5 weapons. The same goes for ammunition. This ammunition allows us to craft ammunition that gives us much more damage. So ammunition like this, such as copper ammo, give us a certain percentage of damage. And then down here for ammunition 2, you get the ability to unlock steel ammo, and the same. And the farther we go down here, we unlock more and more, like eventually tungsten ammo, which does the most amount of damage essentially in the game. And one thing you can mess up on here and want to pay attention to is these middle nodes for advanced ammunition. Then we have advanced ammunition 1, which gives us copper AP ammo. I repeat to you, you do not want to craft this copper AP ammo. You have to put a point in here anyways to get to the later stuff, but do not craft this ammo. The reason you don't want to craft it is because you're wasting valuable in-game resources. You can see the regular copper ammo costs gunpowder and regular ingots. This AP ammo for every type also costs Stardust Source. You need this high level upgrading in every single thing in the game you need Stardust Source for. So don't waste it early on, because you can see it only gives us plus 4% extra damage here, which is absolutely nothing and not needed. Do not use this for AP ammo early unless you're going to use it for stuff later on, like when you're level 40 or 50, or you absolutely need it. So the short version of blueprints, so you can completely understand it, there are blueprints for a number of different weapons and a number of different armor pieces. Now, the way this works is you don't essentially just find a blueprint and unlock a piece. That's not typically how it works in Once Human. Through a variety of methods, you unlock blueprint fragments just randomly found throughout the world doing quests, etc. So let's say we take this legendary shotgun. It takes 80 fragments to unlock because it's a legendary and more rare weapon. So what that means is you have to find 80 fragments in order to unlock this. They generally are found in terms of like 20, 30, 40, just depending on when you happen to find them and how many you happen to find. It's kind of just random. You can see a less rare weapon like this blue pistol only takes 40 blueprint fragments to unlock. So blueprint fragments, if you click on that option right there, you can actually see all of the blueprint fragments you currently have and what weapons you can unlock. For instance, this purple pistol right here has 60 out of 60 fragments. That's what I currently have. So if I wanted to, I could hit F and fuse this weapon to unlock it, and then I could now craft this pistol. And if I switch over to BP Unlock, you can see all of the BPs that I currently have unlocked. So you have to find the blueprint fragments throughout just playing the game, the map, etc. And then you have to come in here and fuse the blueprint fragments together once you get enough of them to then unlock the weapon so you can actually be able to craft it. Now, you don't always want to use your blueprint fragments that you have available to unlock weapons that you might not use, but I'll show you exactly why you don't want to do that here in just a second. Really quick, I want to touch on the main ways you can unlock all of the weapons and armor you want and all of the blueprints to get some of the really good stuff. The first one is going to be doing things like monoliths. By doing monoliths, And even like, especially the harder level ones, you have a chance to get things like blueprint fragments, things like that you can use to unlock different weapons and armor. Second, each one of these big town areas in every portion of the map has mystical crates in them. It doesn't really matter what level they are. You want to make sure you get mystical crates at every area you can, because mystical crates contain random blueprint fragments for different weapons, and different armor can be all the way up to legendary, or it can be all the way down to common pieces. But this is how you're going to get a lot of your original blueprint fragments, because of the amount of towns there are. In some of these starter areas, there's probably a total of like 30 of these big towns, meaning this can be a primary source of unlocking weapons and gear very early. And the primary way you're going to be getting your weapon fragments specifically is through the wish machine. So once you finally make it over here to the Greywater camp, you're going to unlock the wish machine. Now the wish machine does two specific things for you that lets you really get pieces that you like. So you essentially build up Starcrom as a basic currency throughout playing the game. It's the primary currency to unlock gear. You're going to have different things down here that will unlock. For instance, Echoes from the Rift are currently unlocked, and these other ones will unlock as the season progresses all on its own. So don't stress on how to unlock these. You can't. It only happens over time. So if we click on this, we can see we get a random amount of weapon blueprints here. We have a 1 out of 1 chance to get a legendary weapon blueprint out of 20 rewards, as well as a chance to get a rare weapon blueprint 6 times, etc. So these are all random chances. So you essentially spend your Starcrom and get chances, and spend your chances to get a random set of blueprint fragments for different pieces. Now this is definitely one of the better ways to try and farm out as many fragments as you can, but you don't want to waste your fragments if you don't know what you're getting sometimes. For instance, in this case, it might be better to wait until Herald of Courage unlocks, because we see the jackpot here can give us a legendary scar. So if you're wanting to get that legendary scar, save up your Starcrom, don't spend any of it, wait until this unlocks, and then go for the legendary scar, because you can probably get it and get a weapon that you 100% know that you want. The same goes for all of these. You can save up your Starcrom until these unlock to actually get really good weapons. Now another way you can do this is going over the wish machine and clicking the blueprint shop. This is where you can actually spend your Starcrom for literal blueprints themselves. Now I warn you, this costs a literal ton of Starcrom. To get this amount of Starcrom actually takes a pretty good while. So if you're really wanting a blueprint, you can definitely save up to do this. It does cost quite a lot, but this is a way to guarantee a blueprint that you absolutely want. Next, I'm going to show you why you don't want to waste your blueprint fragments, like I mentioned, on stuff that you do not need. And that's because you can actually use those blueprint fragments for other weapons to enhance other blueprints and make them more powerful. Just to give you an example, if we look at this purple scar here, if you look at these stars up here, it's currently 1 star out of 5. What that means is out of 5 stars, it has 1 star's worth of power. And the more stars you give this, the more upgrades it gets, the higher the blueprint goes. So if we upgrade this all the way to 5 stars, then each time we craft one of these purple scars, it will come out as a 5-star scar, meaning it will be way more powerful than the 1-star version. So you're essentially upgrading the blueprint itself, so you can continue to make this weapon more and more powerful. So if you want, you can actually right click to go to details, and then this is where you can actually enhance the weapon. So to give you an example here, if we wanted to do that with, let's say, this blue AK, we right click on it, and we then have other blueprint fragments here for the AK, because we have extra that we essentially didn't need. You can see this will give us a total of 240 XP, and you can see how much here. Each common blueprint fragment gives you 1 XP, 3 XP for fine blueprint fragments, epic 10, and legendary 30, meaning the more rare it is, the more actual XP you get. Now, you don't have to have that exact weapon's BP to actually have some of the fragments count. You can see if I right click on the sniper, I can actually use some of the XP for this BP that I have unlocked and the BP that I currently have locked. Meaning if I decide to use this, I'll contribute 60 XP to that weapon, and then once it gets to 80 XP, again, it will go to 2 stars, and all of these stats will increase. So save all of your blueprint fragments you're not going to use, because you don't know, you might be able to use them to upgrade some of your more powerful blueprints later, instead of just having a bunch of weapons unlocked that you don't ever want to use. Now another thing is calibration. So calibrating weapons is extremely good in Once Human and really increases the power of the weapons, but there are a couple of basic rules to calibrating. For instance, this might not be something you want to do very early in the game, because it does cost a decent amount of resources. However, it does give you more damage. For instance, if we upgrade our crossbow from a 0 to a +1, we're basically going to get a pretty decent upgrade in our damage, going from 367 all the way to 401 damage. And some of these weapons can also have other stats go up too. If you actually hit replace calibration attributes, you can actually jump in here, and if you dismantle weapons, you can actually replace some of the calibration attributes from some of the attributes you get from getting rid of some of your older weapons by essentially dismantling them here in the disassembly bench. It sometimes can give you some of those attributes that you can actually replace on some of of your weapons if you don't actually like some of the attributes that it has, like accuracy plus 12. Now, in terms of actually calibrating the weapon, again, we can see we get a big damage bump from hitting F to just calibrate this crossbow. Now, here's where the rule comes in. Early in the game, you can essentially do each weapon once or twice for completely free. I mean, it costs 6 bronze ingots, but we get a ton of extra damage. And if it's your primary weapon like your Scar, you might as well do it because it just makes you that much more powerful. So we're going to do that, and keep in mind it also does cost energy link, so you don't want to waste all your energy. But again, you can see it again costs more bronze ingots. So we're going to do this again, but once we do this twice, and once you get to the point where you start using Stardust Source, which I went over is a very valuable endgame material, until you get later in the endgame around levels 40 or 50, you do not want to use Stardust Source. So once you calibrate your weapon to this point where it requires Stardust, stop doing it. And then once you get to like max level 45, level 50, you can then start upgrading your weapons and calibrating them at that point, because then you're just trying to get big power upgrades. Next, one of the big things you can do to make your weapons extremely powerful, and I mean extremely powerful, as mods, and having the right mods is absolutely key to being able to do the most amount of damage. The first thing I want to talk about for mods is obviously you're going to get some of the lower level mods as you begin to level up and progress in the game. So you start getting mods like this, which have one basic attribute and core effect. So you see all the green ones are just basic ones. Some have the diamonds that don't have any color, and then some have the diamonds that have like green and blue symbols in them. The green and blue symbols mean they're essentially more powerful attribute effects than, for instance, just ones over here that are regularly gray. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is the highest tier attribute on a mod can only go on a weapon that matches that tier, or the weapon is a higher tier than it. For instance, this green attribute is a tier 2 mod, meaning it can only go on a tier 2 or higher weapon. The highest one we have on this one, we have a tier 2 and tier 3. Being a tier 3 mod, we have to have at least a tier 3 weapon, otherwise it cannot go on it. But it's important that you want to make sure you pick some of the really good mods early on to give you the biggest power benefit. For instance, some of the big things like weak spot damage is a very good attribute to have. Keep in mind, by targeting this and having 5 weapon damage buffs like this instead of 0 on all of your mods just because you're not paying attention, means you could be missing out on plus 50% weapon damage, which could be absolutely killing your damage and your progression. And now quick, I want to touch on mod enhancements, because you can actually enhance your mods, especially good ones that you get later game. It's going to be very important to actually buff up your character to the max. And this is stuff you can do even earlier than the late game. So for instance, we have some of these old mods here that we're never going to use. What can you do? You can actually hit X and scrap these. So you can see if I select a bunch of these to go ahead and scrap, and then I jump over here to our disassembly bench, and I jump over to our mod section. You can actually select these in here to scrap as well. So I'll just click some of these older ones. And before I disassemble them, you can see we're going to get 29 weapon mod parts and 2 armor mod parts. This is going to be important because these are going to be cards that we use to upgrade some of these more powerful mods to continue to make them more powerful. So we're going to disassemble these, and then once we jump in here, we're going to jump back into our mods menu. Like for instance, this one, that's a really good mod that I actually don't have on for some reason. We're going to be able to right click on this mod, and we're going to have the chance to enhance it. So it's going to take 12 weapon mod parts. Currently we have 90. It's also going to take 200 energy link. So if we actually hold to enhance this, you can see we're at 3.2 and 3.6%. If we do one enhancement on this, it's then going to upgrade one of these to send this up to 4.8%. So over time, it makes some of these mods more and more powerful because you can enhance them with these cards that you already get naturally through playing and getting rid of your older cards. So if you actually talk to Nisa or one of these vendors in any one of these big towns, there will almost always be a vendor that sells specific mods that are very special and unique weapon mods. Some of these are going to be some of the most powerful in the game, and in order to upgrade them, you actually have to use the currency Sproutlet. To get this currency, you actually have to finish the Cargo Scramble and Highway Pursuit events, and you'll see them on the map flashing in red just randomly throughout. And if you do, you should go to them because you're going to get this specific currency. You'll be able to buy some of these unique mods and be able to use them and upgrade them. You can see the Shock Rampage mod not only has 2 effects like all of the other ones, but it has 6 different effects on it. And that right there can be a huge game changer for how much damage you're able to do, especially in the late game when you're speccing out a build. So it's good to go ahead and start building up the Sproutlet currency. So when you need to get some of these mods a little bit later, once you figure your build out completely, you have it there so you can just go ahead and buy it instead of having to hunt down a bunch of events later. I also want to touch on weapon attachments. So if we go to our gear and we right click this, we can see the mod that we currently have selected. But if we go to accessories, we can also see some of the attachments we have. And a lot of these attachments can actually make your weapons a lot more powerful and a lot better. For instance, for this vertical grip attachment, we lose a little bit of mobility, but we get stability, making our shots more accurate. And the more rare ones you find, the more complete benefits you get. And you can continue to find these everywhere, and you can actually find them completely for free. So for instance, the way this works is there are different things around the map, such as these different challenges, like different cones, different cameras that you can run, or other things like this camera event, and all sorts of just random chests and events that you can find throughout the game that will show up as these purple cubes. If you find these purple cubes and you open them, there's a chance that you can get a weapon accessory out of them for completely free. You can actually look up specific ones you're looking for online, and they can show you exactly where to go and what puzzle to complete to actually find the accessories that you want. Now again, these can actually make your weapon much better. Again, having even just a hollow sight on my scar versus a regular sight can make literally the world of difference. Additionally, a way you can get some very good attachments also is visiting Severin. So once you visit him, as you play, you unlock Stellar Planula. This currency allows you to buy things at his shop. You can unlock a lot of cool attachments here, like rare and legendary ones. And once you buy them, you're able to use these attachments on every weapon that you have, essentially, that it will fit on. For instance, if I go to my gear and I look at my scar, I can use this optic sight on this scar. If I have another weapon I can use it on, I can have it on all of them essentially at once, because these are essentially unlimited use attachments. Now another big thing is your cradle, and the way your cradle works is you can see you have a bunch of circles right here. You have a bunch of abilities right here that you will continue to unlock once you get higher levels, and these circles begin to unlock as you clear your securement silos. So each time you beat a new securement silo, one of these bubbles will unlock, and you can then drag one of these status enhancements over here to this area, which makes you more powerful and makes your weapon do even more damage. So you can pick which ones you want. So you can see right here I have plus 20% when holding SMGs and rifles, because I'm using a rifle all the time. That's a free 20% damage. We also have this crossbow and sniper rifle enhancement here for extra damage, and overall weapon damage for 4 seconds after reloading, which again is a huge another weapon damage benefit. You can see we have a ton of different ones to choose from, and either more the further level we get, and the higher we get and more securement silos we unlock. So you want to make sure when you have a securement silo you do, go ahead and do it, knock it out, because you want to be able to put as many of these enhancements over here to make you more powerful and make your weapons just that much better. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to mention, your mid and end game builds are going to revolve around a lot of special effects. So to give you an example, we'll take this purple scar. Now some of these special effects that these weapons have can range drastically. So this plus 35% chance to trigger power surge on the scar is a very powerful special effect. So if we right click on it to enhance it and come over here, you can see it deals instant shock damage and increased power surge damage when hitting an enemy, meaning for 35% of the time we have a chance to trigger power surge and deal that huge amount of extra shock damage. Also, crit hits increase the chance of triggering power surge by plus 30%. Meaning if we can always crit, we get another 30% bonus, which means we can essentially get 65% chance to trigger. And then we also get plus 30% chance of triggering power surge based on the weapon's trigger chance. And if it's high enough, we can get pretty close to 100% trigger chance, meaning we can always be hitting enemies with power surge if we do our build right. And a lot of these weapons all work this way, and you can structure builds specifically around how they work, because a lot of these abilities like the shrapnel ability, other things like frost vortex, can all be worked in with other pieces of gear, other enhanced mods, special unique mods and attachments to build really powerful weapons that basically can one-shot or just absolutely devastate enemies. Those are all the big weapon tips I have, and hopefully now you should be a weapon master. That being said, if this helped you out, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.